Long ago, in the bustling cities of ancient Greece and Rome, there lived a group of philosophers known as the Stoics. They were men and women who believed in living a life of wisdom, courage, and self-control. Among their many practices, one stood out as both simple and profound: the practice of silence. But why did these thinkers value silence so much? What could they possibly gain from saying nothing at all? This is the story of why the Stoics practiced silence, and how this quiet habit shaped their minds and lives. In the noisy streets of Athens, where merchants shouted their prices and politicians argued loudly in the agora, a young man named Marcus often found himself overwhelmed. He was a student of philosophy, eager to learn, but the constant chatter around him made it hard to think clearly. One day his teacher, a wise Stoic philosopher, noticed his frustration and took him aside. "Let us walk to the hills," the teacher said. As they climbed away from the city, the noise faded, and soon the only sounds were the wind and their own footsteps. When they reached the top, they sat in silence for a long time. Finally, the teacher spoke. "Do you see now why we practice silence? The world is full of noise, but wisdom grows in quiet places." The Stoics believed that silence was not just the absence of speech, but a powerful tool for self-mastery. By choosing silence, they trained themselves to resist the temptation of idle talk, gossip, and complaints. Words, they knew, had power. A careless word could start a fight, spread falsehoods, or waste precious time. But silence gave them control over their speech and, more importantly, over their thoughts. The philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave, taught his students that most of what people say is unnecessary. "If your words do not improve the silence," he said, "then it is better to say nothing." Silence also helped the Stoics to listen, not just to others, but to their own minds. In the quiet, they could examine their thoughts and emotions without distraction. The great Roman emperor and Stoic Marcus Aurelius kept a journal where he reflected on his life and choices. He wrote these words in the stillness of the night, away from the demands of his empire. Without silence, he might never have gained the clarity that made him one of history's wisest rulers. Another reason the Stoics valued silence was to strengthen their inner peace. The world, then as now, was full of troubles, wars, injustice, loss. Many people reacted to these hardships with anger or despair, filling the air with their suffering. But the Stoics sought a different path. By embracing silence, they learned to endure without complaint. They trained themselves to respond to chaos with calm, not noise. A famous Stoic saying goes, "We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond." Silence was their way of choosing a thoughtful, measured response instead of a reckless outburst. There is a story about the philosopher Seneca, who was once insulted in public by a rude man. The crowd expected Seneca to reply with sharp words of his own, but instead he stood quietly, unmoved. Later, a friend asked why he had not defended himself. Seneca replied, "When a dog barks at you, do you bark back? Some words are not worth answering." His silence was not weakness, it was strength. He refused to let another person's anger disturb his peace. The Stoics also saw silence as a way to deepen their understanding of nature and the universe. In the quiet of the early morning or the stillness of a temple, they contemplated the order of the world. They observed the stars, the changing seasons, and the flow of rivers, all without speaking. This silent observation helped them see the bigger picture, reminding them that human problems were small in the grand scheme of things. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything is fleeting, our lives, our troubles, even our words. Only wisdom lasts." But perhaps the most important lesson the Stoics taught about silence was its role in humility. In a world where people competed to be heard, silence was a way to step back and remember one's place. No matter how wise or powerful a person was, they were still just a small part of a vast universe. Silence kept them from arrogance. It reminded them that true wisdom begins with knowing how much one does not know. Today, the world is louder than ever. There are voices everywhere, on screens, in phones, in streets. Many people fear silence, filling every moment with noise to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But the Stoics would say this is a mistake. Without silence, there is no reflection. Without reflection, there is no growth. Their practice of silence was not about rejecting the world, but about mastering the self. So, the next time you feel the urge to speak in anger, to join in gossip, or to fill the air with empty words, remember the Stoics. Try silence instead. Sit quietly, listen to your thoughts, and see what wisdom grows in the stillness. As the old Stoic teachers knew, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. And in that silence, you may just find the inner strength they cherished so deeply.